Hello there and good evening. I'm Don Arleth and you're watching World News Tonight, coming to you live from Warsaw on TVP World. Another pro-democracy demonstration, this time in Turkey, with potentially millions on the streets of Istanbul. Do you see this, Erdoğan? The demonstrators chant, but the Turkish president responds with arrests instead. We'll have more on that in just a moment, but first, the latest headlines. Putin talks peace while continuing to unleash death on Ukrainian civilians. Prominent Belarusian oppositionist and her children are missing. Polish investigators are on the case. And a feast for the senses in Warsaw's Łazienki Park. Today is Piano Day. We start off tonight in Turkey, where hundreds of thousands, even up to 2 million people have taken to the streets of Istanbul in what demonstrators describe as an effort to defend democracy. The protest broke out 10 days ago when the city's mayor, Ekrem İmamoğlu, was arrested on the same day he was nominated to run against Recep Tayyip Erdoğan in the 2028 presidential elections. Susanna Jurek has more on the story.
A popular outcry against Recep Tayyip Erdoğan's rule is intensifying in Turkey. On Saturday, supporters of the main opposition grouping, Republican People's Party, rallied in their thousands in Istanbul.
This is by far the most unprecedented challenge to President Erdoğan's rule.
The protests began in response to the jailing of Istanbul Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu, who was handed corruption charges and is now pending trial. Many experts perceive the arrest as politically motivated, as it came amidst İmamoğlu's nomination as the Republican People's Party 2028 presidential candidate.
Till his jailing, I'd say he was the most direct threat to Erdoğan's presidency.
The protests were met with a swift government crackdown, akin to the scenes observed over a decade ago.
The Gezi Park protests and the crackdown of those protests, that the country has been increasingly sliding towards authoritarianism. So in a sense, İmamoğlu's arrest now and the repression of the protests is part of a trend.
Turkey's Interior Ministry estimates that over 1,900 people have been jailed. The government has also resigned to tried and tested methods of dissent suppression.
In this case, we see nothing else but what we've always been seeing during mass protests, and that is, of course, jailing journalists, controlling the media, for example, by blocking Facebook accounts, X accounts.
These repression techniques have worryingly been applied to independent media outlets too, with journalists facing mounting pressure from the government.
This is the first time that I witness a clearly identified media professional chosen as a target and sent to jail for attending an outlawed demonstration.
Experts point out, however, that this is a risky game for Recep Erdoğan to play.
There are some factions of opposition who may think that this kind of oppression may be a chance to them to take on the stage.
Particularly as pressure is also mounting from Turkey's international partners, including French President Emmanuel Macron.
The systematic prosecution of opposition figures and civil society, the attacks on freedom of information and assembly, and the arrest and detention of the mayor of Istanbul clearly constitute attacks and violations that we can only regret.
This is not the first time that Erdoğan has faced rampant opposition in his 11 years as president. Much like over a decade ago, he is intent on squashing the dissent. Just yesterday, Ekrem İmamoğlu alleged his lawyer had also been arrested on false pretenses. For TVP World, Susanna Jurek.
And now we go to Ukraine, where 4 people have been killed and at least 36 injured by a series of Russian drone strikes across the country. A deadly attack on the southeastern city of Dnipro started a series of huge fires and left a trail of destruction, as John Todd now reports.
Firefighters battle a giant blaze started by a mass drone strike in Dnipro. The Russian attack killed 4 people and wounded 21 others. The late Friday UAV onslaught sparked fires that consumed a high-rise apartment block, around 10 homes, and here, a hotel and restaurant complex. The flames just meters away. Hours later, the full extent of the destruction is revealed. The building now a charred shell. As residents begin cleaning up, there's anger that Russia talks about ceasefires on the international stage by day, while unleashing a living hell at night.
They were circling over us, the last batch that hit us, you know where. It was very loud, it was very scary. We are grateful to the Russians for freeing us from our property.
What a nice truce we have. I think everyone understands why. It's just to sow panic among the people. We have nothing here, no infrastructure, nothing. It's all about panic. They need it.
Local media report that Moscow launched 172 attack and decoy drones overnight at targets including Kyiv. Meanwhile, Ukrainian troops are preparing for a fresh Russian offensive. Ukrainian government analysts say Moscow wants to increase pressure on Kyiv and strengthen the Kremlin's negotiating position in ceasefire talks. As the war grinds on, Ukrainians are once again left picking up the pieces of their shattered lives as President Putin pursues his power grab. This is John Todd for TVP World.
It was supposed to be a display of fanfare and getting in with the locals. Instead, it was a 4-hour tour laden with insults. U.S. Vice President JD Vance touched down in Greenland on Friday and sharply criticized Denmark over its stewardship of the territory, arguing that Copenhagen has neglected both the island's people and its security. Denmark fired back, defending its Arctic record and reaffirming close ties with the United States. So what's really going on behind this transatlantic dispute? Alexandra Marhevich reports.
Undeterred by Greenland's chill, the US Vice President delivered some frosty criticism on Friday before departing. During his visit to Greenland, JD Vance slammed Denmark for underinvesting in semi-autonomous territory, which he claims is vulnerable to threats from China and Russia.
Our message to Denmark is very simple. You have not done a good job by the people of Greenland. You have underinvested in the people of Greenland, and you have underinvested in the security architecture of this incredible, beautiful landmass filled with incredible people. That has to change.
Vice President delivered his remarks in Bidufik, the US military base in northern Greenland, hours before a bold government coalition emerged in Nuuk, pledging to maintain Greenland's ties with Denmark for the time being. Meanwhile, Danish Foreign Minister Lars Rasmussen swiftly rejected Vance's accusations, underscoring their long-standing defense treaty between Denmark and the United States.
We have a defense treaty with the Americans dating back to 1951. They themselves have reduced their military presence to one base with 200 soldiers. In the past, they had 17 and 10,000 soldiers. And if they want more, both Denmark and Greenland would like to help them, because we in the Danish defense know very well that we need to do more in the Arctic.
Rasmussen said it is odd to be told off by an American vice president, adding that Greenland is already secured under NATO. Denmark's prime minister has also previously weighed in on the matter.
We in the kingdom would really like to work together with the Americans on defense and security. We want that in Ukraine, we want that in Europe, and of course we also want that when it comes to the high north. But Greenland belongs to the Greenlandic people.
President Donald Trump famously declared that the US has a security imperative to acquire Greenland, which Denmark has administrated since 1721. The question remains, what message was Trump administration trying to convey during this visit?
Vance stepped away from the idea that the US is going to invade, use military force to seize Greenland. He indeed said that the US will not annex Greenland, but he said Greenland's going to become independent and then they're going to link with us. They're effectively going to become part of, the greater United States. He had no regard for what the people of Greenland want.
Polls indicate nearly all Greenlanders oppose joining the United States, but the debate hasn't gone away. For TVP World, Alexandra Marhevich.
The Belarusian opposition is sounding the alarm, claiming one of its members has gone missing. The Vyasna human rights organization reported that Angelika Melnikova, the chairwoman of the Belarusian Coordination Council, disappeared on March 25th along with her two daughters, aged 6 and 12. It is believed that Melnikova and her daughters are outside the country, but Polish authorities are assisting in international efforts to find the missing oppositionist and her children. Alex Sumlinsky has the details.
The Belarusian rights group Vyasna reported Angelika Melnikova's disappearance on Friday. Belarusian opposition leader Paweł Latuszka alerted the Polish authorities that same day. The spokesman for Poland's Interior Ministry said that representatives of the Belarusian Coordination Council have been unable to contact its chairwoman, Angelika Melnikova, for several days.
According to the knowledge of the Polish and partner services, this person has been out of Poland for many weeks. The Polish services will support the activities of the services of other countries and the Belarusian Coordination Council in order to determine the whereabouts of Mrs. Melnikova.
Melnikova, a key figure in Belarus's democratic movement, is believed to be outside Poland and possibly outside the EU, opposition sources said. As we go to air Saturday evening, the whereabouts of Melnikova and her two young daughters remain unknown. But what is known is that the last dictator in Europe, Alexander Lukashenko, represses any movement for democracy. Paweł Latuszka, who works with Melnikova, is no stranger to the threats that come with working for democratic change in Belarus.
Here we are, next to the office of the National Anti-Crisis Management. Two officers of the GRU, the Ministry of Defense of Belarus, entered the staircase where Polish language courses are held, one floor below, above our headquarters. We managed to identify them. Each of them had 4 names, 4 passports and a registration in a military unit in Belarus.
Melnikova has been an outspoken critic of Alexander Lukashenko, the first and only president of Belarus since the office was established in 1994. He has been prolonging his rule with each sham election that is neither free nor fair. Thousands of political prisoners remain in prison. People can't protest in the streets, and the democratic opposition has been dismantled.
We have to show people that who is Lukashenko. We have to show them that he is a criminal. It's a mistake that we think that everyone knows that Lukashenko is a criminal. Well, no, they spend such huge resources, financial, human resources, for propaganda, and this is all supported by millions of euro by Kremlin.
The Coordination Council, of which Melnikova is the speaker, is a body of the Belarusian opposition in exile, established by opposition leader and presidential candidate Svetlana Tsikhanouskaya in August 2020, after the state-backed electoral fraud and a crackdown on protests. The Belarusian secret police, the KGB, is believed to be closely monitoring opposition members who have fled abroad.
I know that Lukashenko considers as an enemy anyone who has such an opinion, who says directly what they think about him. More than once, Lukashenko has given orders to kill opposition leaders.
The duties of the Speaker of the Belarusian Coordination Council will be temporarily performed by Deputy Speaker Stasia Glinik. Alex Sumlinsky, TVP World.
The battle of the marches as Poland gears up for the presidential elections starting in mid-May. The two main parties, the Civic Coalition and Law and Justice, are doubling their efforts to get out the vote. In order to do so, each party will hold a march in support of their candidate, one in April and the other in May. Kazimierz Wysiak reports on the showdown to the presidency.
In less than 2 months, Poles will cast their votes in one of the most high-stakes presidential elections in decades. The ruling coalition, led by Prime Minister Donald Tusk, seeks to replace right-wing President Andrzej Duda in order to go full steam ahead with its reforms.
In Polish political system, president can easily veto particular bills, and you need supermajority in the parliament to overthrow the presidential veto. So without support from the presidential side, the prime minister and the majority cannot rule fully.
The ruling coalition's main candidate is Warsaw Mayor Rafał Trzaskowski. His main rival is historian Karol Nawrocki, backed by the right-wing Law and Justice Party. As the political campaigns are heating up, the Conservatives are throwing a public march of support in April.
We are organizing a march, but it's also a celebration of an anniversary of the coronation of the first king of Poland. It just so happens that it comes during the election time.
Eye for eye, march for a march. The ruling Center-Liberal coalition has decided to respond with its own rally on the streets of Warsaw.
The best response to Law and Justice's April march will be a great patriotic march in May, because this May will decide whether Poland will be strong and safe or alone and weak. Do we have an appointment? Sunday, May 11th, Warsaw at noon. Let me know if you're coming.
Experts say these marches are a good way for political parties to mobilize voters and gauge their chances ahead of the vote.
We've been witnessing the march competitions between two main political parties. Pictures matters, view matters, turnout matters. I think that symbols matters.
Marches of support are nothing new for Poland. On October 1st, 2023, Donald Tusk's coalition organized the so-called March of a Million Hearts.
To jest marsz do Polski wolnej.
2 weeks later, Poland saw a record turnout of 74% at the parliamentary election and a change of government after 8 years of conservative rule. According to opinion polls, the ruling coalition has a good chance of keeping that momentum. Rafał Trzaskowski is sitting comfortably at 33%, while Karol Nawrocki has the pro-Russian nationalist Sławomir Mencen breathing down his neck. Polish voters will go to the ballot stations on May 18th, while the potential second round would take place on June 1st. It remains to be seen which march of support manages to mobilize more people. For TVP World, I'm Kazimierz Łysiak.
A state of emergency has been called in Olomouc, Czech Republic, after a train derailed 1 month ago, spilling highly toxic benzene, contaminating groundwater and threatening the ecosystem. The state of emergency was called after environmental inspectors discovered that the hazardous substance was spreading towards the Bechva River. Sonia Agata-Biszczan reports.
A state of emergency was introduced on Friday in Czech Olomouc region bordering Poland due to benzene contamination. The development is the consequence of a February accident when a freight train derailed, spilling 350 tons of benzene, a toxic liquid, into groundwater. All this amid flames soaring over 20 meters high and thick black smoke visible from kilometers away.
There is a risk of widespread contamination due to benzene leaks into groundwater. The declared state of emergency allows us to do everything we can to minimize the impact of the accident.
The incident occurred in Hustopeča nad Bečvou, less than 100 kilometers from the Polish border, and the state of emergency was introduced to accelerate cleanup efforts and prevent pollution of the Bečva River.
If contamination possibly spread into that river, it would carry the benzene chemicals further away, and it could turn from a regional issue into a countrywide issue.
Contamination was found in a well near the site, and a local fishing group reported elevated benzene levels in a nearby reservoir.
The situation is complex and the restoration works may take years. Necessary measures, including pumping of groundwater and removal of contaminated soil, are underway at the site.
The government has called the incident the world's largest benzene contamination of its kind, thus requiring immediate action.
We can already detect some criticism from the environmentalists who are criticizing that this was taken way too long, that the state of emergency, if the situation is as dire as to require a state of emergency, should have been declared much sooner.
Although benzene has carcinogenic properties and is harmful to humans, the Ministry of Environment said there was no imminent threat to human health. The state of emergency will last 1 month. For TVP World, I'm Sonia Agata-Biszczan.
There are 88 keys on a piano, and on the 88th day of the year, the world observes Piano Day to celebrate the timeless instrument. Here in Warsaw was no different, as music lovers flocked to Łazienki Park to take in the beautiful sounds. Anastasia Yadchenko takes us there in this report.
On this day, piano players feel a special connection to the keys, weaving note after note into a melody that becomes their own story, shaped by their emotions. On every 88th day of the year, matching the number of keys on the piano, music lovers around the world celebrate Piano Day. It's a global event dedicated to honoring this timeless instrument, and in Warsaw's Łazienki Park, the celebrations are in full swing. The sound of piano music fills the air as visitors gather to enjoy live performances in one of Warsaw's most scenic locations.
This place is unique because of its history, its architecture, and its cultural heritage. I'm truly delighted to perform here in this magnificent palace and share the sounds of the piano on its special day.
Pianists of all backgrounds, from classical virtuosos to modern improvisers, are taking turns at the keyboard, creating an unforgettable atmosphere and paying tribute to an instrument that has become an inseparable part of their lives.
It gives me immense satisfaction. Music plays a key role in my life. It is both my career path and a source of great joy. It truly fulfills me as a person.
All of the musicians prepared meticulously for their performances. The park's Łazienki Palace was filled with breathtaking melodies, including pieces by legendary composers such as Poland's own Frédéric Chopin, recognized worldwide as one of the greatest pianists of the Romantic era, and often referred to as the poet of the piano.
There's probably no stronger artistic brand in Poland than Frédéric Chopin. From a young age, while studying in music schools, we're deeply connected to his music.
Beyond the performances, the event encourages people of all ages to engage with music and experience its powerful healing energy. Piano Day is more than just a celebration. It's a reminder of how music brings people together. And in a place as historic and picturesque as Łazienki Park, the harmony between nature and sound makes the experience even more special.
Hundreds of thousands at a minimum, and even up to 2 million. That's how many people have taken to the streets in Istanbul in support of democracy and opposition frontrunner for the presidency, Ekrem İmamoğlu. The mayor of Istanbul was arrested on corruption charges a week ago, along with about 100 others. However, demonstrators contend that the charges are fabricated by President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan. İmamoğlu is widely seen as the only candidate who can challenge Erdoğan in the next elections. Erdoğan has now been in power for 22 years. And joining me here to discuss where these protests are headed and what impact this will likely have on Turkey is director at the Polish Institute of International Affairs, Jarosław Ćwiek-Karpowicz. Hello, and thank you very much for coming in and joining us on World News Tonight.
Thank you for invitation. It's always good to be here.
Yes, now we see these protests going on, the largest in recent memory, the largest in at least a decade. Do you think, by the looks of it, is this spelling trouble for President Erdoğan, or does Erdoğan hold all the cards up his sleeve, if you will?
I mean, he's a president, for many years, and unfortunately, all previous protests, maybe not so numerous as nowadays, didn't enforce him to change the political course and just to be more liberal. Unfortunately, he also a few years ago eliminated his main opponent, and now with mayor of Istanbul, the situation is pretty much the same, that there is not a real opposition against Erdogan, and this is not good for Turkey, for Turkish society, for the state of democracy. It's not good for us, for Europeans, to have very good and important relations with a country which definitely is very far away from democratic standards. I think that what is important this particular time is that there was a chance a few months ago announced by the PKK leader that maybe the confrontation between the Kurds and Turkey, assuming the situation in Syria, may develop in a positive way in Turkey itself. And the President Erdogan's position towards this openness of PKK to negotiate, to talk about some peace solution and to stop terrorist attacks was not so clear, his position. And now, for me, his step to be less democratic, more pro-authoritarian, and some Kurdish parties supported the mayor of Istanbul. It shows me that Erdogan is completely not interested in stable situation in the Turkey in terms of confrontation with Kurds. It seems that he wants to hold his power and use all the time also the Kurdish threat. And so he's playing two, let's say, games at the same time. Elimination of political opponent among Turkish politicians, and also showing that there is no possibility for talks with PKK.
With the consolidation of power that Erdogan has essentially achieved over his 22 years in power, where does this leave the person that's been jailed right now? I mean, these elections are going to happen in 2028. Why does Erdogan pull this move now and not wait till closer to the elections?
I mean, you know, when you have elections so close, it's definitely more dangerous situation that the people, the supporters of opposition may just be more active and determined to be much more vocal and present on the streets. Now we have just a time to the elections, so he's just, you know, preparing, let's say, the table and just eliminating people who eventually may be a danger for him. But also what I mentioned before, I mean, that maybe he's also trying to keep the Turkish-Kurdish tensions on the same level. It means that he's now so-called the Mr. Security, the person who present the Turkish society that, look, I mean, the Kurdish threat is serious, there are terrorist attacks, there's no way to talk with them, so I can only guarantee a relatively peaceful situation. But what I mentioned before, there was a chance that maybe there will be progress between PKK and Erdogan. And with this step, I think this is just, you know, the consequence, just to eliminate democratic opposition and also the Kurdish opposition.
And Erdogan has implicated Imamoglu in dealings with the PKK. Yeah. I'd like to switch gears here real quick because we are approaching the end of our interview. We have a couple minutes left. We saw U.S. Vice President JD Vance go to Greenland for about a 4-hour tour. It was supposed to be a trip, you know, planned to have his wife go and tour and be welcomed into the homes of Greenlanders. They were supposed to attend a dog sled race that was supposed to give them some kind of public optics. But it really just turned into a 4-hour tour at a U.S. military base. What do you make after this trip there to Greenland? We see firm no from the Greenlanders, yet the U.S. press is on.
I mean, it's not the first time in the last few months when some public figures, I mean, public important persons from US, they are coming to Greenland. So it was first the information about the second wife, now the also vice president. Before there was Donald Trump's son. So there is definitely some intention of U.S. government to show that the Greenland is very important and we have to do something with the situation. Unfortunately, I mean, from my point of view, it serves only just for domestic U.S. audience, just to show Americans that that we change, let's say, borders, we change the system, and we protect our interests in Greenland. In reality, the American interests in Greenland are completely safe. I mean, they have a military presence since many decades, and there is no problem to expand this military presence and have another soldiers, more soldiers and more equipment. There's no problem with that.
If they wanted to do it, they're perfectly able to do so.
Yeah. In terms of energy resources, I mean, Greenland is a vast area when the exploration of crude oil and natural gas is extremely difficult. Also for Canadians or for Russians who also have access to the high north, definitely, you know, it's much easier to extract energy sources from let's say another area. So, and there's so far there is no production in Greenland, no real investment. So, of course, from let's say, I mean, from the point of view of Greenlanders and international relations, it's a very bad step, because definitely it makes some tensions in Greenland with European alliance with Denmark, and there is no significance, no real consequences, only some symbols which are very bad perceived by us, by Europeans.
Okay, Jarosław Ćwiek-Karpowicz, director of the Polish Institute of International Affairs, thank you very much for joining me tonight.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And that concludes this edition of World News Tonight. Thank you all for joining us. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you next time. Good night.